What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, wanted to talk about pretty much a pretty serious issue when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. And it kind of stinks that we have to really talk about this because the Indianapolis Colts just won their third game and are over 500 and, playing really well. And, it kind of stinks to have to talk about this right after a big win, but it's a topic that, not only are other fan bases talking about it, but the Colts fan base has to talk about it now. And we have to talk about the health of Anthony Richardson. Now, in no way, shape, or form, and we're going to probably have another video later this week talking about it, but I don't think in any way, shape, or form we are saying that this means that we have to pull the plug on Anthony Richardson, because we do have to remember this is only the fifth game in his NFL career, and he's a very young player, as Cody mentioned in the recap video from way before. But it is a serious circumstance because, Cody, we're 5 games into this, and this is the third different injury that has caused Anthony Richardson to miss some time, right? We saw him get hurt week 1 with that knee injury. And even though it didn't keep him out of a game completely, he did miss one last drive at the end of the game, even though it was already over. And then we talk about the concussion that made him miss most of game 2 and week 3. And then, of course, here we are, week 5, now has an AC joint sprain in his shoulder. And not only not his bad shoulder or his non-throwing shoulder, but his throwing shoulder, which makes it even more difficult for him to have to come back from. Is it time to start panicking with how frequently Richardson's getting injured right now?
I don't know if it's time to panic quite yet because, again, like you said, this is only his 5th career game, and everything. But I think it definitely is concerning. I think Colts fans and the media and everybody, we have a right to ask the question, is this going to become a trend of Anthony Richardson? We know with the type of quarterback that he is, we've seen in different quarterbacks, it's not a sustainable thing in the majority of the time. At the end of the day, you're going to have to be able to beat people with your arm. You just are going to have to. If you're going to be in this league for a long time, look at some of the quarterbacks that were in the league 10, 15, 20 years plus. Those were the guys that, took care of themselves, took care of their bodies, did not take the unnecessary hits. And, it's something that's part of Richardson's game is his ability on the ground. But it is concerning. It's, because you think about this, if he's going to continue to take these big hits, they're going to add up. They are going to add up. And that's, you're one big hit away from your career trajectory completely changing. And so that's just something that you just have to be very, very cautious of, very, very aware of. And I think the Colts needed on it. Frankly, I love what Shane Steichen's brought, but he's got to be smarter with Anthony Richardson right now. And the hits that he is asking him to take right now, I just think you need to be smarter with that. And Richardson obviously needs to take care of himself better as well. But yeah, I don't think it's time to panic yet, but it's definitely worth asking the question because you're right. It's 3 different separate injuries. I know the AC one was, I think it was a former injury that he had sustained.
Same injury in high school.
Yeah, so he's dealt with this before. Now, we're not 100% sure at the time of this video. I'm sure, our information will probably be a little bit outdated because I'm assuming we will get a little bit more of an update. And again, we'll see on that. But, depending on the severity of the injury, Richardson could miss, it could miss a game, could miss a few games, could miss a good chunk of, you just don't know with some of these sprains. And so you hope, because we've seen Derek Carr had an AC joint sprain and he played a week later after sustaining that injury. So you just don't know with this type of injury unless you get the severity of it. But I think the point still stands, Derek, is you just have to do a better job of protecting your franchise. I mean, you took this guy 4th overall, and you honestly, and it's weird because your offensive line's did a good job of protecting him, but so far, he's taken how many big? I feel like he takes at least 1 or 2 big hits per game, and it just so happens those big hits that he takes knock him out of the game. And so it's unfortunate that, and I feel like there's a little bit of unluckiness when it comes to Anthony Richardson and taking some of these hits. But yeah, it's just something where you just need to be smarter about it.
And, I talked about it. I talked about it with you. And I don't remember which video. I think it was in the recap, but I think before we did the recap, I told you that guys like Anthony Richardson, sometimes the hits they take, for as big as he is, sometimes actually, Cody, as cool as it is that Anthony Richardson is as big and athletic as he is, unfortunately, I think that's playing to a disadvantage at times with him. I take this and I think about Gronk. Remember Rob Gronkowski, ladies and gentlemen? Like, Rob Gronkowski was such a big dude that, like, sometimes, unfortunately, when you get to be a certain size, hits and falls, they actually impact you a lot more than it does small dudes. Which, I mean, because again, there's less surface area and less mass that hits the ground, and there's less of an impact. And that is something that happens. And like the injury that he sustained, I mean, obviously the first injury that Anthony Richardson sustained, he learned to slide a little bit better, and then that knee hasn't been a problem since then. And unfortunately, the last two injuries, Cody, that he sustained were all accidents. It's freak accidents. Because, I mean, the one that he got a concussion on, that could happen to anyone. It just happened to Mo Cox in this last game. Mo Cox had the same thing happen to him. Falls backwards, the head hits the turf, that whiplash, and it just knocks you out of the game. It's unfortunate because you start seeing stars. It's unfortunate. It's just part of the game. And then obviously in this game, you talk about with, that they ran that play, Cody, 3 times against the Rams last week. And Anthony Richardson ran it all the better, just fine, and never got injured on it. But of course, it's just the one time, lands on that shoulder just at the wrong angle at the wrong time. And it's just such a freak thing. And it's like, I'm glad that it's freak stuff, because at least it's like saying, I mean, again, we had this talk with Paris Campbell back when he was still here. I mean, everyone was talking about all the freak injuries that he sustains. They pile up after a while, but I mean, Paris Campbell hasn't been injured since his 3rd year in the league. He's now in his 5th year, and he's doing just fine. So that makes me feel a little better knowing it's freak stuff. But you're right. Like, it's starting to get to a point now where if Anthony Richardson misses a couple weeks, and obviously when we get this video out, we're not going to know this, but if he has it to where he's going to have to miss several more weeks, again, it's just more weeks that Anthony Richardson is not playing, and he's not getting the experience, and he's not getting better. That's the whole point. We talked about it in the recap. It seems bittersweet because, yes, the Colts are winning, but they're winning and not doing what the whole season is about getting Anthony Richardson better. And he's just not staying on the field. And it's unfortunate because now, as you mentioned just a minute ago, you start talking about, should Shane Steichen change up the offensive game plan? Because he talked about it in the recap presser after. He said, we drafted this guy because of what he can do as a runner. It's what makes him special. It's what makes him a great player. And he talked about how he's ran that play several times this year and hasn't had that injury. And now all of a sudden he just does it once and unfortunately gets injured. It's a rough situation with it, but I was also under the impression, Cody, that you're right. Like, we might have to start getting to a point where Shane Steichen has to take a step back and say, maybe we should do a lot less designed runs for Anthony Richardson, because, the problem is it's not the fact that he's getting injured. It's the rate at which he's getting injured. They just keep piling up way too fast. And I think Anthony Richardson should really reserve a lot more of his running capabilities for either going vertical or just doing it as an option to get away from pressure. Because I think at this point, it's twice now you have designed a run for him and he has gotten himself hurt on a designed run. And it's unfortunate, but I think it might need to be something they need to address.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you want Anthony Richardson to develop as an elite passer, right? We knew that, like, that's the goal, right, for pretty much any quarterback at this point. So I think you're right. I think you use his legs, but it's proven, at least at this point, that running him as much as you are, you can say, okay, it's worked, 9 out of 10 times, but it only takes that 1 out of 10 to knock him out of that game, and so you just got to be smart about it, I think. And the Colts haven't necessarily done that so far in certain ways. And so it's like you don't want to take away that piece of him that's dynamic, but also it's like you need to develop him as a passer first and a runner second. It shouldn't be you're running him all these times, like his legs are definitely special. It's what makes him special, but that shouldn't be a good chunk of his game. I think it should be a lot. Obviously, if he's in trouble, he has to escape. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We see quarterbacks do that all the time. And Richardson can do that probably a lot better than 99% of the guys out there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what the difference is between guys like, with Patrick Mahomes. Like, we know that he can run the ball when need be, but that's not his first option, right? And that's honestly kept him on the field a lot more than, say, a guy like Lamar Jackson, because his first inclination is not to run the football. And so, again, hopefully that just comes with time as he develops as a passer. The Colts feel more comfortable making him be more of that traditional guy that, will pass it a lot more than he does run it. And, maybe just the injuries will force him to have to do that in certain ways, because it's like we can't be having this guy missing multiple games, coming back, playing that game, and then getting injured again. We just can't have that happen. And so I just think the Colts need to be smart. They need to develop a game plan. They need to figure out something, a way to help reduce the risks for Anthony Richardson to even be in a situation, Derek, where he could potentially take a hit like that. I think that's the biggest thing is like, yeah, you can say we run that play and we don't have that, but there still is that chance that it only takes that 1 out of 10 and then it changes everything. So you just got to be careful with that. And you're right. The injury history, it speaks for itself here. And so you just need to be wise with that and understand that and not try to do the same thing expecting a different result. I just don't think you can do that.
Yeah, I mean it stinks too because we keep talking about Lamar Jackson as if they're the same guy, and it's unfortunate because it's just not. And he's more along the lines of the Cam Newton ages of the world, and we saw that after a certain point with Cam Newton's career, if the guy can't run, then he becomes a liability. And the last thing we want is for Anthony Richardson to become a liability on the football field. I mean, he's completing 60% of his passes so far this season. He's been very good, much better than I think a lot of people thought he would be as a passer. And we were talking about it before the game. Anthony Richardson had a lot of really good passes in that first half before he went down with that injury. And you're right. I think it is more along the lines of, we got to try to dial back a few of those runs. You have two running backs right now that you are extremely confident in can get you 100 yards any given Sunday, no questions asked. You still obviously have that ability to run the ball with Anthony Richardson. You just have to ensure he is being extremely, extremely careful. We said he needed to be more careful. He needs to be extremely, extremely careful now because of the situation that he's in right now. So at the end of the day, I honestly don't expect Shane Steichen to really change anything about his approach because so far his approach has been winning. So I'm not really going to think he's going to change too much on Anthony Richardson right now. I just hope that whatever time that Anthony Richardson misses from the time we record this, because obviously, like we said, we don't know what he's going to miss. But I just hope whatever time he misses, just Anthony Richardson's a lot more careful about how he's falling and how he's getting tackled because, he keeps piling these injuries up, man. It's going to be a long career for Anthony Richardson.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on this. Are you concerned? Are you willing to just let it go for a little bit? Do you think Shane Steichen should change some things up, or do you think it should just stay the way it is and think Anthony Richardson's just been hit with some bad luck? But let us know your thoughts, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.